She was a cashier. Not an executive. Not an accountant. Not a financial professional of any kind. She earned $11 an hour scanning groceries at a Walmart supercenter in rural Mississippi. And over 6 years she stole $2 million from the company using a method so simple that when investigators finally understood it, they couldn't believe nobody had noticed sooner. This is the story of how the most ordinary job in retail became the platform for one of the most remarkable employee theft cases in American corporate history. The full story. Her name was Leigh Ann Daigle, 34 years old. A cashier with 6 years of service and a reputation among managers as reliable and hardworking. She wasn't in charge of anything significant. She didn't have access to safes or management systems or financial records. She had a register, a barcode scanner, and 6 years to figure out exactly how the system worked. Which is exactly what she did. The crime. Daigle's method was built on a feature of Walmart's return system that existed for entirely legitimate reasons. When a customer returned an item without a receipt, Walmart's system allowed cashiers to issue a store credit or cash refund based on the item's current price. No receipt required. No manager approval below a certain threshold. Just a cashier scanning a returned item and issuing a refund. Daigle realized that the system didn't adequately cross-reference whether the returned item had actually been purchased at that store. So she began processing returns for items that had never been bought there at all. Items she brought from home. Items collected from other locations. Items that the system accepted because they were genuine Walmart products with genuine barcodes. Over 6 years she processed thousands of fraudulent returns. Each one small enough to appear routine. Collectively totaling $2 million in cash refunds issued to herself. The fatal mistakes. A new loss prevention system flagged Daigle's register after a routine algorithm. Update identified an unusual return-to-sale ratio. Her register was processing returns at a rate statistically impossible for a normal cashier workflow. A loss prevention officer reviewed 6 months of footage. What he saw was immediately recognizable. Items being brought into the store in personal bags. Processed as returns. Cash collected. Over and over. Every shift. 4 months. The footage review was expanded. Then the full transaction history was pulled. And the $2 million total emerged from 6 years of records hiding in plain sight in Walmart's own data. The investigation. Investigators from Walmart's internal loss prevention team worked with local law enforcement to reconstruct the full transaction history. The forensic analysis identified 6,784 individual fraudulent return transactions across 6 years. Each one processed during Daigle's shifts. Each one involving items that transaction records showed had never been purchased at that location. The pattern was undeniable. The documentation was comprehensive. And the amount, $2 million from an $11 an hour cashier, made it one of the largest individual employee theft cases in Walmart's history. The verdict. Leigh Ann Daigle was convicted of felony theft and sentenced to 5 years in prison with an additional 10 years probation and full restitution of $2 million. Walmart subsequently updated its return processing system to require additional verification for no receipt returns above minimal thresholds. A policy change that cost millions to implement across thousands of stores. Prompted by one cashier who had 6 years to study a gap that the system's designers had never considered anyone would exploit at this scale. She wasn't a financial genius. She wasn't an insider with access to corporate systems. She was a cashier who paid attention. Who found one gap. And who exploited it every single working day for 6 years. Tomorrow on the Fraud Files, the church fraud that destroyed 300 families and the pastor nobody suspected. Subscribe. Because the money trail never lies.